Ron DeSantis versus Donald Trump. Now, Ron DeSantis has not declared that he is going to run for office, for presidential office, but he's favored. He's favored. And there have been talks of people trying to get him to run. And the question remains, who would likely win? If it was between Ron DeSantis and Donald Trump in the Republican primary, who has the upper hand and who would be considered more dangerous to the American people? Now, I looked at numbers from a couple of months ago, and I looked at recent numbers, and I think you may be surprised by what you see. So Politico put out an article recently. Florida legislature poised to change the law to aid in a DeSantis presidential run. This is how bad they want Ron DeSantis to run for president. They're willing to go as far as changing the law so he can run. I kid you not. Let's get into it. All right, here we go. Florida's top Republican leaders say they are willing to change state law to smooth the way for Governor Ron DeSantis to run for president in 2024. Both Speaker Paul Renner and Senate President Kathleen Passidomo, both of whom were sworn into their new spots on Tuesday, agreed it would be a good idea to make it clear that DeSantis would not have to resign if he wound up becoming the GOP nominee. DeSantis was reelected to a second four-year term earlier this month after he defeated his Democratic rival by roughly 20 points. If an individual who is Florida's governor is running for president, I think he should be allowed to do it. I really do. That's a big honor and a privilege. So it is a good idea. While DeSantis has not yet said he will definitely run in 2024, he has emerged as a top potential contender for the job. Some are pressing him to run, even though former President Donald Trump has already announced his third bid for the White House. Recent polls have shown support for DeSantis is rising among Republican voters. So I saw a comment here from Eric Gray. If it were done today, Ron DeSantis would win out. And Eric, I believe you're in Florida. Let's go on. Let's go on. Florida law requires anyone running for a new office to put in an irrevocable letter of resignation ahead of qualifying in the terms of the two offices overlap. The law was changed in 2008 to open the door for then Governor Charlie Crist to seek the vice presidency, but legislators reversed the course 4 years ago and put back in place a requirement that someone seeking federal office would have to resign ahead of that actual election. So let me explain what's going on here. Because Ron DeSantis ran again for governor, ran for re-election, if he wanted to run for president in 2024, he actually would have had to resign as governor. So if he wanted to do that, he shouldn't have ran again this time. They're trying to change that law just so he can run. That's how bad they want him. Let's go on. The 2008 law did include a carve out for someone whose term is about to end, but that would not apply to DeSantis. The carve out allowed then Governor Rick Scott, who defeated incumbent Senator Bill Nelson that year, to remain in office until the day DeSantis was inaugurated. Renner said that proved state legislatures had been inconsistent about the state's resign to run law, and that was one reason he was open to changing it again. Politico reported earlier this month that those close to DeSantis say he has not made a final decision about running for president, but that if he does, he would likely wait until after the 2023 session that starts in March. That would also be the time the Florida legislature, which now has a GOP supermajority in both chambers, would consider changes to the state election law. Florida legislatures routinely pass election law changes in non-election years. DeSantis has brushed aside talk of a possible presidential run, including the potential confrontation with Trump, telling people to chill out. It was Trump's endorsement that catapulted DeSantis ahead of then Agriculture Commissioner Adam Putnam in the 2018 Republican primary. Trump recently attacked DeSantis for playing games by not announcing his presidential ambitions. He says, I'm only focused on the governor's race. I'm not looking into the future. Well, in terms of loyalty and class, that's really not the right answer. Now, that came from President Trump. So, yeah, he did take a shot at DeSantis. I don't know if I mentioned that to you guys before, but he did take a shot at him, kind of like, nah. A Trump-DeSantis confrontation would likely split many Florida Republicans, with some, such as Representative Matt Gaetz, who was a part of DeSantis' 2018 transition team, backing Trump. When asked on Tuesday to choose between Trump or DeSantis, a smiling Pasitimo said, wait. Asked a second time, said what? Asked a second time, Trump or DeSantis, she said again, what? And then returned to her office. I agree, Dan. They both suck. But I wonder who you guys think is more dangerous. Now, I want to show you a couple of numbers here because I do want you to see what are the polls saying. Now, this is from 538, and I know sometimes their numbers have been off in the past. But for shits and giggles, let's see if they're right this time. Why Trump is favored to win the 2024 Republican presidential primary. Again, this is coming from 538. Let's see what they are talking about here. Listen to this. Make it a little bit bigger. First, Trump remains popular and influential among Republican voters. See, guys, this is what I was telling people earlier on RBN. People who think that Trump's base is completely like, well, yeah, we're not feeling this anymore. They're wrong. They're wrong. He is still very popular among his base for the most part. Some people have walked away, but for the most part, not so much. Not so much. According to Civics, 80% of registered Republican voters have a favorable view of the former president, and only 11% have an unfavorable view. Guys, 80% favorable. Admittedly, he is a little less popular than on Election Day 2020, when 91% viewed him favorably, but the decline has been gradual. So it's telling you it didn't happen overnight, which also means if the decline has been gradual, then that means that what happened last January, and I've got to be careful how I talk about it on here, what happened last January at the Capitol didn't really change that many people's opinion. It says that the drop has been gradual. And we're going to look at that now. So it goes to show you Trump remains very popular among Republican voters. Let's look at this. 2020, that was election day, favorability, 91%. You see that there has been a gradual decrease, but the fact that he still stands at 80% after everything that's happened, that says something. That tells you, that's why I keep telling people his base is still very much supportive of him for the most part. Now, Let's go down here. That's that unfavorable percentage there, which is 11%. Let's see if that was lower before. Yes. Yes. At 1.5%. Now let's go on because there's another chart here that I want to show you as well. Granted, that isn't as impressive as it seems. Several times Trump endorsed candidates who were already well on their way to winning. And Trump's endorsees did fail to win certain highly watched contests, like the primary for Georgia governor. But just as often, Trump's endorsement seemed to give a meaningful polling boost to its recipient. For example, Ohio Senate candidate and author J.D. Vance went from trailing in the polls before Trump's endorsement to leading in almost every survey afterward. Now, that being said, that did not happen in a lot of the other races. A lot of the other candidates, most of the Trump endorsed candidates did not win. So I just wanted to add that bit in there. Now, this is the piece people need to pay attention to. Can I make this a little bit bigger? Okay. Trump has led early polls, but DeSantis has been creeping up. And this is what I want people to zero in on here. Now, Donald Trump is the green line. Ron DeSantis is the purple line. I don't know why they put Mike Pence in here. Mike Pence is the yellow line. I don't think anybody wants a robot for president. I'm sorry. That guy has zero personality, man. Zero personality. All right. So as you can see, the polling numbers now, this is from November 4th to November 14th. Trump is polling the highest among the Republican base for the Republican presidential primary. But Ron DeSantis is here in the purple. And if you go all the way over here to November, you see he's starting to creep up. That's what people need to be concerned about. He's starting to creep up as well. Both of them are horrible. But the question is, who would be more dangerous? You have to look at it this way. Trump's already been in office, so we know what he's about. We know what he could do. Some people may look at that as, okay, well, we already know his game, so we would be better off with DeSantis. But then at the same time, you don't know what DeSantis would be like as a president. Some people may see that as a positive. Some people may say, let's give him a chance. But you can do both sides of this. Like some people may say, like Eric says here, DeSantis is way more dangerous, Sabby. Trust me. That's how I feel too. Based on what I've seen over the past year and a half, I think Ron DeSantis might be more dangerous, to be honest. Whereas with Donald Trump, we kind of know where he stands, for the most part. Either way, both of them are awful. Let's go on. There's one more chart I want to show you here as well. And again, remember, this is 538. So, sometimes they're not as accurate as good. Early polling leaders often win primaries. Average support in the polls taken in the first half of the year before presidential primaries, 1972 to 2016, for candidates with high name recognition and their chance of winning the nomination. Let's take a look at this. Candidates polled like Trump won the nomination 75% of the time. Now we have a video here from Ron DeSantis. I'm going to play just a small bit of this. DeSantis responds to Trump's insults against him. Tonight's possible 2024 announcement, although that did not happen.
And, at the end of the day, I would just tell people to go check out the scoreboard from last Tuesday night. The fact of the matter is, The fact of the matter is it was the greatest Republican victory in the history of the state of Florida.
I hope everybody heard that. This is why I was telling people he's more popular than some people think. Like, it wasn't even close between him and Chris. It wasn't even close. And now Florida has a Republican-led on both sides, it seems like. Both sides. Senate and House. Interesting.
How do we make it better?
Well, look, I mean, I think some of this stuff gets a little bit overdone in some of the media. I mean, at the end of the day, you had an election nationwide. There were some success stories across the country. I mean, I think Georgia governor, I think Ohio, I think Texas, but there were a lot of disappointments. I mean, that's just the reality. It was a hugely underwhelming, disappointing performance, especially given that Biden's policies are overwhelmingly unpopular. People think the country's going in the wrong direction. When that happens, they almost always want to choose to correct that by going. Yet in a lot of these states, they didn't do that. Well, the one place I think that people can look to as the blueprint is Florida, because what have we done? I mean, we came in, I had a very close election. In fact, before I became governor, 2010, 2012, 2014, 2016, 2018, all the major races, governor, presidential, were 1 point or less for that time. So in my race was less than a point in 2018. And so we came in to a very, very large, diverse swing state, and we led. And we were on offense, and we didn't shy away from big issues. We took on those issues, and we won victory after victory for the people of Florida. Of course, when you had COVID come, I had to stand on the wall and say, you know what? We're not going to let this state descend into a Faucian dystopia. We're going to stand up for people. We're going to keep things going. And so we did that, and people appreciate that. But we were bold throughout this whole 4 years. I didn't didn't have my finger in the wind. I wasn't trying to contort myself into being something that I'm not. Everyone knew where I stood. Everyone knew what we were doing, and we did it. But I think what it shows is that, if people see that you're leading and they see that you mean what you say and say what you mean, and that you're willing to and you're able to deliver results, we get people to vote for us who may not be in our party. And that's
that piece right there. He said, we get people to vote for us who may not even be in our party. And I've heard this before, too. And Eric Gray, I don't know if you're going to join the call in after the show tonight. But if any of you are listening and you're in Florida, I would love to hear your takes on this tonight on call in, because I had a feeling that some of the people who voted for him were not necessarily Republican. I had a feeling about this.
It's really what you need to do. You don't win by 1.5 million votes if you only get your own party. And so what we were able to do, yes, obviously we got a lot of Republicans turning out because they were supportive, and we appreciate that. But, we won independents by between 15 and 20 points. We probably won 60% of Hispanics statewide. That's a record. No Republican has ever done that. I don't think anyone's ever done that.
You guys hearing this? They won like independents by 15 to 20 points. I'm telling you guys, I see a lot of people always talk. I've seen people talking about Trump all year long, and Trump ain't even in office. And my thing is, like, while y'all talking so much about Trump, Ron DeSantis, he's creeping up the ladder in reference to popularity. And I believe he would be worse than Donald Trump. But here we are. Let me go ahead and get to the super chat here. Thank you for the super chat, Cool Blue. 2024 consideration, Trump renominated, winning party general election, Dems hold Biden or otherwise, GOP wins pickup, DeSantis elected in 2028. Interesting. That could be possible.